Rob Longley is with us from Dunedin, where the Blue Jays have opened. Have they opened camp officially?
Not officially, although today is officially pitchers and catchers report day. But I mean, essentially the whole team has been here since Monday. The only guy missing is Alejandro Kirk. He's back in Tijuana waiting for his wife to have a child, and basically everybody else is here and accounted for.
So what's happening there? It is technically before camp. Are guys working out every day? Are they on the
Yeah, I mean
field?
they're on the field right. They're doing a pitcher defense drill right behind me here. Kevin Gosman is working on that, and it's essentially, guys. It's camp has begun. It's a
Yeah.
full schedule. A bunch of the pitchers are going to be doing bullpens here in another hour or so. Guys are going doing batting cage stuff. A lot of work being done on the details to deal with the new rules, and yeah, it's the weirdest thing in sports really, because report day means nothing. I mean, it's almost like if you don't report, you're late. So it's yeah, activity is well underway, and they're going to play a baseball game in another 10 days or so.
Now, the fascination for me is, like in other sports, spring training used to be when guys got into shape. Is that the case in baseball? Is everybody ready to go, and this is just a timing issue now?
Yeah, I think it's a lot like we see in the other sports, John, and hockey, and guys really start getting after it by January, and they come in here in tip top shape. Like, the joke around camp is like, yeah, I've never been in better shape in my life. That's sort of the line you hear 50 times every spring training.
Yeah.
But some of the guys look really good. Danny Jansen's put on a little bit of muscle, and he's been bombing balls out of the park, and batting practice pitches, but nonetheless. But he's looking good. George Springer had his surgery. He looks good. Alec Manoah looks like he's put on some more weight and a little more muscle. So yeah, everybody looks good. They're ready for. Their training began a long time ago. They're ready to get down to business here.
I can't imagine Alex Manoah being bigger.
I couldn't either, but it almost looked like his arms are, more bulky than they were last year. But the guy's a workout machine, and obviously he's a beast in his size too. So, but they do it. The Jays strength and conditioning staff keeps on top of things, and they tailor an off season program like they do in all the other sports, and they're expected to come to camp in tip top shape.
Somebody fat there, right?
Other than sports writers, no.
No, exactly. Well, you look around. This is not unusual, but you look around this team, and basically you've got 7 spots that are taken. The only spot that I think you have any kind of who's going to start there is second base. Is that true?
Yeah, and John Schneider, the manager, essentially acknowledged that the other day, saying there's not a whole lot of drama to this camp or a whole lot of decisions to be made. It's just to make sure you find the best combinations, and that that everybody's in good shape and dealing with all the new teammates and the new rules. But yeah, second base will be sort of the one major question that we have to decide during camp. And I think Aspinall will get a shot, and Merrifield will get a shot, and there could be some sort of a platoon situation with them by the time we get to opening day.
Yeah, the consensus has been that Merrifield will get it, but you don't think so necessarily?
I think it's probably his to lose. I suppose the caveat to that would be that, and you don't approach things this way, but Santiago Aspinall was an all-star second baseman last year.
Exactly.
But you get a veteran like Merrifield, and the other thing with Merrifield, we saw last year that when he first came to the team, he wasn't getting a whole lot of playing time, and here's a guy who's used to being an everyday player all of his career, and he struggled. He definitely struggled at the plate, and then towards the end of the regular season, when he got in the games more, his bat started to come to life a little bit. So I suspect that they're going to want to get him to play more this year to make sure that his bat can be a little bit of a presence. And then you've got Espinal to back him up if he were to go cold.
Is this team deep enough, Rob?
That's a good question. I think if you're looking for flaws in them, I think that would be the depth would be the issue. Obviously the starting rotation, we've got 4 and a bit of a battle for the 5th spot in between Yusei Kikuchi and Mitch White. But even if that is settled, like, what's your depth beyond that? And we all know that how many starters do you actually need during the course of a season? 7, 8, 9, depending on how things go. And the depth below them in the minor leagues, even at AAA, there's not a whole lot of starting pitching depth. So I think that's something that, they're going to have to find a solution for, whether it's to bring in more bodies or to hope that some guys that had showed promise in the past, guys like Thomas Hatch and maybe even Nate Pearson, although I don't think he's going to be in the starter's role, that they develop some depth that way, so that when the inevitable injuries come along, that you've got guys that you can move in. There's a lot of outfielders and there's a lot of decent outfielders, so the depth is fine there. And I think given the configuration of the infield right now, I think we've got enough depth as well. But to me, the question mark in terms of that issue would be with starting pitching, especially.
You say there's lots of outfield depth, but who's the fourth outfielder?
Well, I think they'll probably put Biggio out there a little bit. They could put Merrifield can play out there. So yeah, they'll. I guess you don't necessarily have quality depth in the outfield. And this is an issue, right? Because I mean, if you look at, on paper anyway, they've got one of the best defensive outfields in baseball. Mm-hmm. But how
with
many
the top
games
three?
Are you gonna, yeah, with the top three. But how many games are you going to get out of Kevin Kiermaier coming off of an injury? And George Springer feeling great, had the surgery, but he's a guy that has been injury prone throughout his career. And are you going to get 140 or 150 games out of him? So there are going to be they're going to have to find a solution to have somebody out there that they can sub in more regularly, because it doesn't smell to me like that's a lot of these guys are going to be everyday players all season long. A little bit longer, but they're also going to spell Springer a little bit too. The last thing they want to do is get him injured. So I think you'd see him DH on occasion as well. So Brandon Belt can play a little bit of outfield if they need him to, and obviously Biggio can as well. But starting three looks pretty good, but the depth is a little bit wanting.
It's funny because we talked about it a bit yesterday, and the DH position to me, I'd always assumed that whatever catcher isn't playing is going to DH. But I keep hearing Belt's name more than anybody else's as the DH. Is that going to be something that is going to be a real rotation now more than anything else?
I think so. I think if I were a betting man, I would say that maybe Belt would get that assignment more than anybody else. But as we've seen with this front office, they haven't necessarily favored having a full-time DH, and I think you will see a rotation. You'll see Springer get some DH days. You'll see Vlad get some DH days, and you'll see guys who have to quote unquote get off their feet get some DH days. That seems to be the way that they like to do things. Especially playing in a place like Toronto where playing in the outfield, playing in the field can be a little bit hard on the legs for a while. So you want to move these guys around a little bit, and I think they're quite comfortable with that. I think that's the way that they've shown that they like to approach the position.
Any discussion in the clubhouse about the stadium configuration? People talking about that?
A little bit, and we're trying to get them to discuss it, but it's kind of like the blind leading the blind at this point, right? What I think will be interesting is they're not going to see it until the day before opening day,
right? So
they'll have a team workout there at the Rogers Center before the home opener, and Mark Budzinski is one of the best outfield coaches in baseball, and he'll be prepared for it. But it's going to take a little bit of time to get used to the configurations and the quirks of it, and how it's going to play, and where you're going to want to be positioned. So. For the first couple of homestands, it's almost you're not going to have a home field advantage from it, because you're going to be learning about it as much as the visiting teams. The guys are curious about it, but right now it's just a diagram and a bunch of numbers, and so they have to see it for real before they can really get an opinion on it.